Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to get started. I'm sorry I didn't put the message about the shir out until very late today, or put the link out. But, okay, we'll go ahead. We'll see how it goes. L'chaim. So we're holding now at a place in the story. First of all, we're on Erev Shavuos now. And in the very last year, at the very end of this year, we mentioned Shavuos. But we should all merit that through Shavuos we should have a very strong Kabbalah Torah. We should bring the holiness of the Shar Nun, the 50th level of understanding, as much as possible into ourselves, integrated knowledge, integrated understanding of Hashem, and we should always be aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the King, because the place that we're about to be in the story is specifically where the Chochom starts to deny the existence of the king, and that's going to be part of his major downfall. So we're going to start on page 265 in the Garden of Wisdom, and we'll go back and forth between Rabbi Arush and Rabbi Kivak and see what we can come up with. So the story continues like this. So what's happened now is that the wise messenger of the king, the Chochom, who's a shliach, a messenger of the king, has come to the Chochom to tell him to come to the king. And the Chochom, it doesn't want to go with him. And he made him wait overnight, and that's where they're at. So he says, if it is because of my wisdom, what am I compared to the king? And does he not have his own other wise men? The king himself must be very wise. So how could it be that he is sending for me? And he was very bewildered by this. So this is what the Chochom says now. So Rav Arush says that first of all, you see one of the main big problems of the Chochom over here, right? Is that he's always very focused on the fact that he's wise and that he's smart. This is like something he always has to say. He's always got to tell us how smart he is, right? I'm a wise person, but why does the king need to send for me? Doesn't he have other wise people, right? He's a truly humble person, says Rav Arush, never has to tell people that he's wise. He doesn't have to say it, right? It happens to be that over my life, there's two people that I know who have a lot of troubles in these types of areas with being a Chochom. And it's these two people, they're the only two people I've ever known in my life, that regularly during a discussion they have to say, well, I'm smart, and therefore it leads me in this problem, in somewhat of a self-deprecating kind of way, to say that I get into problems like this, or I can't be in such a situation because I'm smart and I don't have patience for that. So on the one hand, they're trying to sound like I don't want to go there because I won't be able to have patience and that won't be nice of me. And I am such a wonderful, nice person. But the way they explain it is by saying that, I'm so smart, I'm really smart, and therefore I don't want to be in that situation because, it won't go well. You don't have to say such a thing. If you're a smart person and you're humble, you never have to say it, right? So this is the point that Rav Arush makes over here. And he says weiter that that he can't. One of the things he can't do, right? And he brings a very important idea over here. And this is something that is a very, very prominent point in the Torah of Rabbi Nachman. And according to Rav Arush, he brings it originally from the Arizal, which I have not seen, but I'm sure it's true. And that is this idea that we say in Hebrew of Tachlis Hayadiyah Asher Lo Neda. That the height, the perfection of wisdom is to know that we don't know anything. Now, there's a deep Kabbalistic version understanding of this, but the simple, truthful understanding of it is all we need. To go along with the book about Tamimus, about simplicity, the simple truth of it is all we need. The more a person becomes wise, the more a person begins to attain knowledge, the more they realize how small they are. and how tiny they are compared to the vast amount of knowledge out there. Right? Like you hear the physicists talking these days. I'm no physicist, believe me, and but I like listening to what they say, as like in the pseudoscience realm. I enjoy it. but the more that they're finding out nowadays, the deeper they get into things, the more they realize how distant everything is. Like how vast the universe is, how huge it is. We're understanding things that lead us to places of not knowing. Quantum mechanics and things that sort of exist but don't exist, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But if you ever meet someone who's a truly brilliant person, they'll often be, the more brilliant they are, they'll feel smaller because of the great knowledge they have. But this is what happens if a person has knowledge in the correct way, and we'll see what that means. We'll see what that means. But when a person is able to approach things with humility, then he has a whole different experience. If the Chochom was able to say, Tachas Yadiya Asher Lo Neda, the greatest type of knowledge is the fact that I don't know, he would be able to advance. He would be able to move in the right way. Yeah, so listen to this. Let's read in Rav Arush on page 266. The fact that the clever one refuses to nullify himself before the king should sound the alarm for any person. One stands to lose an entire fortune for both spiritual and material abundance because of arrogance. He finds fault in those who are greater than him, and he finds all types of reasons not to heed the words of our sages, whom he considers plain humans. Right? You have a person who with a brilliant mind, they could be such a contributor. They could do so well. They could be in a wonderful place in society and in the community. But because they cannot allow themselves to be submitted, subdued, submissive towards anyone else, they can't fit in anywhere. Wherever they are, all they want to do is talk bad about leaders, talk bad about Chachamim, and by doing that, they pull themselves out of the community, and nobody really wants to connect with them. Nobody really trusts them. Nobody really feels comfortable with them, and they're bringing themselves out. Right? A simple person, on the other hand, I'm going to read this whole paragraph because this is a good paragraph, middle of page 266. A simple person, on the other hand, relishes the opportunity to hear the words of a wise man. Right? The Chochom can't stand to listen to anyone else. But the simple person relishes the opportunity to hear the words of a wise man. If he has the chance to speak face to face with a tzaddik, he is thrilled, thinking, who knows the benefit I'll get from receiving a bit of advice from this pious and learned individual. He attaches himself to a rabbi and spiritual guide, asking him all his questions and seeking his advice on all phases of life. He knows that his teachers, all of whom he considers much greater than himself, will lead him down the time-tested path of emunah and steady spiritual and personal growth. A person with emunah, simple emunah, doesn't try to invent the wheel with all types of pseudo-intellectual nuances and probes that lead nowhere. And once again, we see ourselves in this situation where the Chochom is always just looking to be above everyone else. He doesn't want to hear advice. He just wants to find the quick way out. And he wants to find the quick way to the next level of prominence, or the next level of financial greatness, of intellectual greatness. Just how can he raise himself up above everyone else? As opposed to, like he says over here, these are great words, what did he say? The time-tested path of emunah and steady spiritual growth. Right? This is what it's all about. And once again, we've seen so many times, this is the derech of the Tam. He was never jumping. He's never trying to be better than anyone else, but he's continually, every day, working with emunah, working with tamimus, always to do good. And by doing that, what did he do? He built himself up, slowly but surely. He built his vessels up. He made himself into something that could receive all the light that Hashem wanted to give him. And the Chochom is doing the opposite. Now he says like this, just imagine, I'll read it, just imagine if the clever one would have come to the king with his vast knowledge and without his arrogance. What could they have done? Imagine what the clever one could have contributed to the kingdom. Right? Imagine this person who's so bright and so capable. He was able to do so many things so well, right? What if he would have gone to the king and been humble and been able to come to serve the Melech, to serve the king? He could have done so much, right? He would have been raised to prominence. But now he's slowly but surely being beaten down and down and down. This is his pathway. So let's see what Rav Kivak says on this on this subject, along the same lines. So he says, now this I think is a fantastic point. Another place of where of this type of chachma can really prevent us from doing amazing things in the world, right? So listen to this. V'zehu davar shekulanu nichshalin boy. This is something that we all stumble in. What? The fact that the chacham is saying, what does the king want with me? He's skeptical of the king. That what is the king really trying to do over here? What does the king want with me? The king can't really want me, right? Says Rav Kivak, this is something that we all struggle with. A midah that we all struggle with. Like for example, when Shabbos comes, on Shabbos, the king sends out to every Jew to come. And he calls us to come to Shabbos. To enter into Shabbos with Kedusha, with holiness. Right? And we can do it. We can go into Shabbos with holiness. However, on the other hand, if we don't have Emunah, and we don't listen to the call of Hashem with simplicity, right? What can we do? What can I really do? Can I really do anything Shabbos? Can I change my Shabbos? I can't really do anything. I'm just gonna be the same old, or I'm just not gonna do Shabbos properly, right? So I want to tell you something, a way that I've experienced something myself of tremendous growth over Shabbos over the last many years. And it's something that sometimes is a little embarrassing for me because it requires me to do some things that many people don't do. But at the same time, it's brought so much depth and it's changed my whole relationship with Shabbos, right? So it happens to be, there's a number of things, Al-Pi Kabbalah. Some of them are concepts that Hasidim have, customs that Hasidim have, but some of them are a little bit more unique, that more people who dabble in the customs of the Arizal have, right? But for example, you guys most of you have been to my house on a Friday night, you might know, or you have to come anyway soon, if you haven't, right? So one of these customs I have, Al-Pi the Arizal, is to, after singing Eishes Chayil, is to walk around the table, right? Once, and then with the Hadassim, Besamim, walk around the table again, right? And there's deep Kabbalistic intentions with this. You don't have to be such a Kabbalist. A normal person can do it also, right? But it's the concept of makifin, right? You're being makif, doing a hakafa around the tables. We always say in Kabbalah that the concept of makifin is something that surrounds me, that is too great to come into my vessels. It's a little bit beyond me. I can't take it in yet, right? So according to the Arizal, when a person does this, even though the consciousness, the spiritual energy that's there on this very high level of makif, just beyond me, even though I can't really bring it in, but I can get a little bit of something from it. In other words, it's not going into me, but it's emitting a little bit of a light that gives me like a little bit of a spiritual suntan. It gives me something. It gives me a little bit of something. Even though I don't bring it all the way into myself, I draw something from beyond into me, a little bit. And then when I make Kiddush, according to the customs of the Arizal, there's certain things to say and a certain way to do it, that the Kiddush is the time when very powerful consciousness and or is drawn directly into the levels of the intellect, right? And we say right before we make Kiddush, we say the Tehillim Mizmor LeDavid, Hashem Rohi Le'echsa, right? And the end of that is Ach Toiv V'Chesed Yirdefuni. The Soifei Tevis of Ach Toiv V'Chesed are Chabad, which is Chochom Bina Das. And it's because we're preparing to draw in Chochmah Bina and Das into ourselves by Kiddush, and then so too by the Lechem Mishnah, The two loaves are supposed to be Chochma and Bina. And we're supposed to connect to them and think about them and mechaven to this whole thing that I am through this whole procedure, I'm drawing into myself a higher aspect of consciousness, a higher aspect of spiritual connection, of light from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And if a person does this, if a person just is willing to try something like this, they might find that it totally, completely changes their whole connection to Shabbos. It totally illuminates their whole Shabbos by focusing on these things, right? You know, the alternative is sometimes that we just say the words without really thinking, maybe at all, right? Or we're just doing the same thing that we did all the time, which is also great, fantastic mitzvah, it's wonderful to do. But there's a level beyond to go to. Why am I saying this right now? Because if someone new comes over to my house for the Shabbos Suda, invariably I will get asked, so what was all that stuff that you just did? What was that thing with it? Why are you smelling these hadassim? Why are you walking around? And I'm like I have to literally give this over every week almost. Right? And it's a little bit, you know, the first couple of times I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't really want people to notice it. It's a little bit embarrassing. I don't really want, you know, not embarrassing, but it's a little bit, it's drawing attention to me. And I'm not looking for attention. I'm trying to focus and connect on a little bit of a deeper level, right? But you know what? I might have said in the beginning, the reason I'm telling you this is because it's been very transformative for me. It's it's added so much to my connection to Shabbos and changed the way I approach the whole inyan of Shabbos, right? In a very special way. So I might have said, you know what? Who am I? I'm gonna try to do spiritual things. Just stand up and say the words like everybody else, fast, and drink the grape juice and start talking about the news. Right? Just be like everybody else. Right? What are you trying to do something? You? Who are you? You're nothing. It's true. You don't have to be a big person to do these things. You can have they're simple ideas to think about, really. Right? There's higher levels of Kabbalistic intention to add to them as well, which is beyond me. But you know, I could have said such a thing. Who am I? The king's calling me? Not me. The king's not calling me. Who am I? I can't go to the king. I can't go into these deep things. I can't try to be a spiritual person. I can't try to really connect to the words that I'm saying and look like I'm focused and I'm really thinking, right? I'm just going to try to be like everybody else, right? So this is what he's saying. We can all fall into this trap, whatever it is. Think about it. Everyone has something like this where people are saying, "Oh, you think you're so religious? You're so what are you becoming a frummy? What are you, you know?" And we think, yeah, can I really do that? What are people going to say? Is that really me? You know, am I doing something that I shouldn't be? I should just be a normal person. Why should I start getting spiritual? Why should I start getting deep? Why should I start thinking deeply about these things? It's not for me. That's not for me. No, the king's calling you. He's saying, you should be, I'm calling you, come closer. Right? Get deeper. Get closer to mitzvahs. Get closer to Torah. Get closer to kavanah, to intention, to doing things in a spiritual way. The king is calling us. Don't be like the Chochom and say, but for me, yeah, you're right, the king's calling, but for me, I have A, B, C, and this person, and I grew up this way, and I come from this thing, and that is the Chochom. Thinking all kinds of different thoughts that are totally irrelevant to the fact that the king is calling me. So the Chochom decides, no, it's not for me. The king's calling him, literally. And he says, no, not for me. Right? Unbelievable. Ubemus, ze taos gedola, hi chol ha'olam nivra b'shvil Yisrael. Don't think such a thing, that it's not for me. Because really the whole universe is created for each individual Jew in their own way. Each individual person has the whole world created for them in their own way. Vasrafim v'malachim gedolim, the great angels, different types of angels, kulam teluyim bano tzrichim, they're all dependent upon the actions of a yid doing mitzvahs. And the whole universe is waiting that all of Klal Yisrael should keep Shabbos properly. V'yasu tshuva, they should all do tshuva. V'az kol ha'olam yavo el tikuna, and then the whole universe will come to its rectification. V'zeh halimud hachi nitzrach la'adam. This is the most important thing that a person needs to learn. Sheyavin shanu chashuvim etzel hamelech. That we have to learn, we have to understand and believe that we are important to the king. We are important to the king. And he is preparing, he's just desiring and longing and waiting and preparing that we should come to him. Every person on their level has a next step to make, to go to the king. And for some reason, we're not taking it. We're not taking it. And he says, and everything that Moshe Rabbeinu and all the tzaddikim, everything that they merited to have, it's only because they believed in this with tamimus, with absolute simplicity. Right? So, we talk a lot of talk. And we talk a lot of talk about emunah. And we believe in God. And we learn Torah. We believe in the Torah. But when it comes down to it, we don't have that absolute simple emunah and tamimus to just do. Just do it. What's holding us back? What's stopping us? Right? Yeah. It's pretty crazy. What do you guys think? Yeah. So what happens next? Let's see. Okay. But you hear that? We can all do it. We all have this power within us, and we can all do it. We just have to realize that the king wants us. So the story says next, page 267 in the Garden of Wisdom. Then the clever one said, in other words, the first clever one, the simple one's friend, the Tom's friend. This narrative is him speaking after he expressed his bewilderment of the fact that the king summoned him, and now he is speaking to the clever messenger. Okay, so it's the Chochom speaking to the Chochom messenger. Listen to what I say. In my opinion, it is certainly a clear and established fact that the king does not exist at all. The whole world is mistaken in this nonsense, believing that there is a king. This is what the Chochom has decided to say at this point. What is going on? Says Rav Arush over here. So, in Rav Arush's opinion, this is a very good way to view it. He says basically that he's failed in his ability to understand how he could be superior to the king. He's failed in his ability to feel as good as or greater than the king. So now his only choice is to say, because of his arrogance, he can't take being lower than anyone else. This wonderful king who people love and who runs the whole entire kingdom and who has all these wise people around him, right? He can't stand that fact. So he decides to say, no, this king doesn't even exist at all. I've determined that the king doesn't even exist. Right? This is the way he approaches it. And he says, consider, how could it be possible that all the people of the world would allow themselves to depend on one man who is the king? Certainly, there is no king at all. This is what he says. So then the clever messenger responds and says, but wait, I brought you a letter from the king. The clever one asked him, did you receive the letter directly from the king? He answered, no, someone else gave me the letter in the name of the king. So he said to the messenger, there you see with your own eyes that my words are correct, that there is no king at all. This is where he goes. So Rav Arush points out that you have someone here who is a very bright person, a very good speaker. He uses the words over here. The words of the quick-tongued clever one, just like those of any other arrogant demagogue, sound good to the masses. but they're far from truth and therefore cannot withstand the tiniest investigation. Right? You have people out there who can speak and who can say things in such a way with total confidence that have no backing whatsoever. But people hear and receive and take it in, and that's it. And it changes the minds of the masses. It's unbelievable. It's really, really, really unbelievable. So Rav Arush explains that the king's letter over here, the king's letter it symbolizes the Torah. And it's a letter from the king, right? So he says that by performing and observing the king's commandments, we bind ourselves to the king. Now I'll read a little bit more and then we'll come back to this. Acknowledging that there's a king in the world would force him to admit that there's someone in the world more important or more intelligent than he. This he could not do. So he simply denied the king. His now twisted mind and logic went down the road to total oblivion in trying to prove that he was right. But it's interesting over here. You have such a person, and this is something that I find that can be very dangerous, that I'll give a personal example from also, that I've experienced before. But you can have someone who's so bright, very smart, and really a very good speaker, and very logical, can make good arguments, and they can, and if they have a little bit of arrogance at the same time, they will get into a discussion, into an argument that they will never back down from, and they can just keep going and going and going and keep. There's a person can be smart enough to win an argument, and they know they're wrong, and they'll still win. Right? And this is not an unusual ability. They won't back down, and they'll keep going and going and going, even though they know they're wrong. They'll still keep in the same argument, and they'll win. It's almost like a debate team, right? How does a debate team work? Like a debate, whatever it's called, where they go against each other, competition. I don't know, a debate, and so they have to. There's a topic, and there's two sides to the topic. And they have to argue the topic. They don't have to agree with it, but the skill is just to debate it, right? So if you're trained, if you're a smart person, you're bright and you're logical and you can think in this way, and you're a good speaker and you're quick on your toes, right? You can become a great debater, and now you can in debate competitions, it's fantastic. You could win. You could be a good debater, right? But when you put that into a person's personal existence, right? And the point is to win an argument, the point is to rule over other people, regardless of what the information is right or wrong, you become a tyrant. You become a terrible person. So I wanted to say that I had this experience, unfortunately. There was this is not the only couple that this ever happened to, but I knew of a couple that got divorced, and in this couple, one of the two spouses was significantly smarter than the other one. This person was very, very bright, very, very quick, and arrogant, right? And the other one she just wasn't smart. What could I say? It's okay. You don't have to be smart. It's not a requirement. You could be a wonderful person and not be so bright. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. But this person wasn't. And so in this marriage, it was just like abuse after abuse, because this one could, no matter what the situation was, dig this person into a hole. Right? And no matter what happened, this person could never be able to say anything to get themselves out, to be able to be heard, right? Their desires, what they want to happen in the relationship, to the kids, whatever, nothing could ever be expressed, because this person could always just run circles around them, and they couldn't speak, because they couldn't. They weren't on the same intellectual and debate level as this person was. What a terrible situation. And so this person was a tyrant and a dictator in the house over this poor person. And if you ever talk to the other person, they'd say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a wonderful spouse. I bring in money, I buy food, we have everything we need. What more do you want from me? Right? But meanwhile, they're a tyrant and a dictator because of this. Right? So what happened? Why is it like that? Why can't you have a smart, really smart, super bright person who's also caring and selfless and is a wonderful spouse? Right? What's the difference? What's the difference? So the difference is clear. The difference is this entire book. The difference is that when a person begins their life with, or begins their journey, or at least makes it part of their journey, to have tamimus, to have simplicity, to have emunah, and to have this type of grounding, then when that's the foundation level, then being a smart person and having wisdom is holy.
Well, you also lift people up.
Yeah, it could be amazing, right? What the amazing things you could do? You could, Sandra said, you could lift people up with this. You could help people. You could be amazing. But if you don't have the tamimus, and you don't have the emunah, you don't have this connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it's a tyrant, right? So this is what we're seeing over here. This is what I think is very, very Gavaldic in Rav Arush right here. Very, very Gavaldic. Yeah. So he says also here, let's go a tiny bit farther before we switch back to Rav Kivak over here on page 269. Yeah, so he said to the messenger, there you see with your own eyes that my words are correct, that there is no king at all. Right? So what happened? He said to the messenger, wait a minute, you really believe there's a king? Did he say already? Have you ever seen? Yeah, he's going to ask him further on the next page. I'm just going to read a little bit more of the story. Then he asked him further, tell me, you are from the capital city and you lived there all your life. Did you ever see the king? He answered, no. For in truth, not everyone merits to see the king, since the king only appears in public very rarely. The clever one said to him, you see that my words are clear and establish facts, that certainly there is no king at all, for not even you have seen the king in your life. Right? So he's bringing something up that I think is very important for us to understand also. Rav Arush brings a pasuk from David HaMelech in Tehillim, that the scoundrel says in his heart, there is no God. So, what's the story? What's the scoundrel? And how does this all work out? So you see, this is very interesting to me, that in universities, it used to be, in the old days, and when I say the old days, I mean more than 100 years ago for sure, right? At least in those times. Universities used to be places of religion also, and you were a scholar, but it was still in the times, whatever, it changed at a certain point. We were still in the times where, for the most part, God was the base level of everything. Everyone just believed in God. Atheism didn't really exist yet, or not, at least not in an established way. So you used to be able to be studying science and have God as a basis. You used to be able to just have emunah, faith, together with being a scholar, right? But you see now that in the universities of today, I'm a university graduate myself, by the way, and what do you see? You cannot approach any topic in academia with starting from the basis that there's such a thing as God. You can't do it. It's not allowed, right? And even in academic religious studies, they're usually only just studying why the differences between religions, or why did religions develop in a certain way, but never, God forbid, if you could say such a thing, that there's such a thing as God. You can't. So now, do you hear what has happened here? It's very similar to this. The way the world is in certainly in academia nowadays, and in a large part of society, is you must not talk to me from a place of religion, from a place of the fact that there's a God. If you're going to start our discussion and our argument with that, we have nothing to talk about.
Yet on the U.S. dollar, it says in
Yeah. There's still religious people out there, right? But so you hear what happened over here, and this is the way that academia went, and that arrogance and intellectual prowess wove itself together into such a place. And now we see it in a similar way. I think someone just mentioned it over here, like in many circles now, like the woke values are not up for discussion. Right? Like, you can't even come to the table unless you're coming to the table already agreeing to this set of woke, quote-unquote, principles. And if you don't hold to those principles, you don't even get to talk. Right? That's it. Done. You have to enter without any of this type of traditional thoughts of traditional values or certainly religious values. Right? It's gone. Which is very interesting to me. That's the place that it's become. And very often, this is a super rant over here. I don't usually rant about these types of things, but very often it comes from a place of the only reason I won't allow you to say what you want to say is because it threatens my agenda. Right? Not let's have a talk. Not let's discuss. Not let's discuss the merits of different sides of an argument. It's like, no. So this is the exact situation of the Chochom over here. This is one trait of the Chochom that's coming out from here, is that when the Chochom's own status or own agenda is threatened, he will just deny and disengage. That is the derech of the Chochom that we're seeing right here in this story, which is very, very apropos to our time now, right? And quite scary. But okay. Now, let's get back to a more hashkafic view of the whole situation over here and how the story is being built. This is the way the universe is and always has been. We don't get to see God face to face. Just like he said over here, you grew up in the capital city where the king is, and you never saw the king? Must be that there's no king. Must be there's no king, right? So you'll have similar arguments. What? Prove to me that there's a God. Prove to me. I don't see it with my own eyes, right? The world is not set up in a way that we get to look with our flesh and blood eyes and see God in front of us. As he said over here, the king sent a letter. The letter is an allegorical representation of the Torah. And when we connect to the Torah, we establish a connection. And our connection with God is not one only of flesh and blood eyes seeing X equals, right? We have a deep connection. The humankind has a deep connection for thousands of years to the existence of God, and it's always been there. And it's only relatively recently that this thing that I consider to be something that's hardwired into us is being removed. So through connecting to Torah, and also how did he get the letter? One of the other wise people from the capital city gave it to him. Right? How else do we connect to the king? Through those who are higher up and more connected to the king. These are ways that we really, establish our connection to the king. And the Tam gets to speak with the king. The Tam becomes someone, because of his tamimus, who connects directly to the king through his ability to speak to him. We have in the world things like Torah, like Tefillah, like Hisbodedus. We have history. We have spiritual connections with each other and with family. That all, if we look beyond just what's directly in front of our eyes, we have an overwhelmingly powerful connection to God. And it's tremendous and it's amazing. And it's only when we start behaving like the Chochom in this story that we lose that. And we lose the bigger picture just for the, wait a minute, did you see him with your eyes? No? Okay, he doesn't exist. Right? And there's such a deeper connection and a deeper existence out there that we can connect to. So this is something that we see over here. We have to connect ourselves to the Torah. We have to connect ourselves to the ministers that are higher up. We have to connect ourselves to accepting the call of the King when he calls us. When he calls us, we have to be like the Tam and speak. When we get an opportunity to speak to the King, and all of these things will allow us to stay with this idea and this existence that has been the true existence for thousands of years since creation, where we have a connection to God, as opposed to being like this crazy Chochom over here, who just has to say, I don't see it right in front of my face, it doesn't exist. Of course the King exists, right? In the story I'm saying, of course the King exists. Right. And then we're going to see, he's so corrupted that even later on, the Tam is going to say to him, when he asks the Tam is going to say to him, what are you talking about? I know the King. I've talked to the King face to face. I've seen the King. Then he says to him, how do you know that the one you were talking to is really the King? He will never be satisfied. He will never give in. He will never allow his argument to be beaten. He will keep fighting until the end. That's it. That's the Chochom. Right? Okay, so that's a little bit of an overview from one side about how we can see what's going on with the Chochom and his relationship to the existence of the King. Yeah? Let's see a little bit of Rav Kivak over here now. So Rav Kivak is going to take it a little bit more personal. Okay? He's saying like that, V'zehu davar she'oila etzel harbe anashim. This is something that really comes up for many people. Kol echad ba'ofen shalai. Every person in their own way. U'beprat k'shahelech la'adam eze inyan kasha. And specifically when a person is going through something that's difficult, something hard. And then that person at that time is going to have some complaints against Hashem, claims against Hashem. Lama eno ezer lai. Why, Hashem, why aren't you helping me? Nichnas karirus belibai. And through this, a person allows coldness to enter their heart. And he says, this I underlined twice over here. This is our own, sometimes, our own relationship to saying that the King doesn't exist. Right? Because, it's one of those things that we can talk a lot about, and we certainly know how to give other people advice about it when things are going bad for them. We say, you just need to have emunah, right? Don't worry, everything's always for the best. Hashem's really, it's helping you, and really, it's good for you, and really, we have... I think most people already know that you have to, don't say that to people who are hurting, right? But we think it at least, right? And it's something that we learn about a lot, and we try to make part of us. However, we can also fall into the shoes of the Chochom sometimes, and find ourselves in such a situation where where in our own heart, in our own way, whoever we are, we get cold, and we enter into a place on, maybe we don't really feel like Hashem doesn't exist, but maybe we feel that it feels like there's no Hashem. Feels like Hashem's abandoned me, whatever the situation is, right? We all have a place where we get cold. That's what he's saying. That's the way we can connect to this on a personal level. And he says the whole world is against this, right? The whole world is making a mistake. And how could it be possible that the whole world is relying on this one person to be their king? Must be that there's no king whatsoever. And so the Chochom said to the other one said to him, didn't I bring you a letter from the king? So let's see what Reb Kivak's version of the letter is. Let's see. Hainu. So remember, in Rav Arush we saw the letter, he said, is referring to the Torah. Hainu, shehatoiv shebenefesh, shebechinas Chochom, ha-Chochom, me'ir hamalucha. So this guy who's the messenger of the king, who comes from the city of the king, me'ir hamalucha, he is a representation of the good in a person's soul. He comes and he asks the Seichel, the Chochom, I brought you a letter from the king already. And if you pay attention, you'll see that he's really close to you. V'chein haya Am Yisrael begalus Mitzrayim. So too, when Am Yisrael, when the nation of Israel was in Egypt, shemeroiv koishi ha'avoida v'chalishu zadas, that from the tremendously difficult work and the weakness of mind and consciousness, nichnasu l'she'elois ha'im hamelech tzarich oisi. They entered into such a frame of thought of, does the king really need me? Does Hashem really need me? Does the king really need me? So what did Hashem do? Hashem sent to them Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem sent them Moshe Rabbeinu. And V'hu moidia lehem she'Hashem yisbarach doeg lehem. And what did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them? He told Klal Yisrael, Hashem is worried about you. Umishtatef b'tzarasam. And Hashem is together with you in your suffering. He feels your pain. He's heard your cries. Right? And he brought a michtav mehamelech. He brought a letter from the king. What's the letter in this version that Moshe Rabbeinu brought from the king? What does a letter represent? Something from the king? It represents something that's a direct message from the king. So he says over here, he brought all these signs and wonders and the plagues. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu brought over here from the king. And v'afal pikein hayuharim Yisrael shelo ha'aminu bo. There was many Jews that didn't believe in him. And they didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. And as we know, how many left Mitzrayim? Right? According to one opinion, only 20% of the Jews left Mitzrayim, because the rest were so caught up in the darkness of Mitzrayim. But the way he's framing it is this: is that we can feel like, does the king even care about me? Why would the king want me? Once again, the king doesn't need me. This is what we might ask ourselves. But the king sends us messages. He sends us Moshe Rabbeinu. He sends us amazing things in our lives to see, right? And if we just listen and we just try to keep paying attention to the Melech, right, and not fall into that place of darkness, we can hang on and we can be like the Tam. But we have to be on the path of Tamimus and simplicity and emunah and simple holiness, and then we can make it through. He says further. Then the Chochom asked him, you yourself, you received this letter from the king? You're in your own hands? And he said, no, someone else gave it to me. He says the same thing over here that we said. It's not possible for a person to see Hashem himself. Ella shegedoylei hatzadikim meirim lanu es hadas v'haTorah b'shem hamelech. Rather, that the tzadikim illuminate us with das and with Torah in the name of the Melech. Das, once again, remember from Wednesday, das means awareness. Das means consciousness. And how do we get it? We keep reading these books. Right? We keep reading Rabbi Nachman. We keep reading the words of the tzaddikim. We keep connecting. And the tzaddikim hand it to us. They illuminate us. They show us the king. Right? And unfortunately, Imagine we've been studying, let's say a person's been studying Torah for over 20 years, and they studied a lot, and deep Torah, amazing stuff. Spent time in yeshiva, and in kollel, and in, Hasidic, Kabbalah, everything. Imagine a person is in such a place, and then they meet a person who's like, how do you know God exists? Right? I can't begin to tell you. I mean, I could begin to tell you. We can talk, right? But the tzaddikim have been illuminating me for years and years and years and years, right? Over and over again, higher and higher, amazing things. I can't. A person can become just connected, be filled with intimate knowledge of the king. Like, there's no doubt, through all the exposure to the tzaddikim, right? It's amazing. Remember this, I think I told this story before, about the Arizal on Shabbos. Do you remember this? Anyone know? So famous story about the Arizal. I usually get the amount of years wrong when I tell this story. I think it's 70 years. We'll see. Anyway, the gist of the story is like this. So the story is meant to give over the tremendous power of Shabbos and the importance of using the time on Shabbos properly, right? So one time, the Arizal was sitting with his students, and he nodded off and fell asleep for a certain amount of time. I don't remember how long it was. And after he woke up, the students asked him, Rebbe, because they already knew that when he would go to sleep, he would ascend up into the very high places where he would learn very, very deep things. And so the students asked him, Rebbe, no, so you were asleep for a while now, so tell us what you learned. And the Arizal told them that in order for me to give over to you what I learned right now, if I spent 24 hours a day with no food and no sleep for 70 years, I wouldn't be able to give it over. Right? Right? So why am I saying that? It's because, if you're a person of Tamimus, and every day you learn, every day you daven, you're going to become a person who's intimately connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you can't see it with your eyes. And you can't really give it over to somebody. You could pick some good things to say, but you can never give over that sense that a person has, right? That deep connection. It's something very, very powerful. It's like, imagine just a similar thing. Imagine someone that you love so much. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a parent, whatever it is. Someone who you have such a powerful love for, right? And try to explain to someone what that love feels like. You could probably write a whole book, and they still wouldn't feel it. They still wouldn't have that connection. They still wouldn't experience it, right? So this is like an amazing foundational point of this whole book, right? Is that the tam is continually, day by day, just tamimus, simplicity, and amuna, doing good and connecting every day. That's it. And slowly he builds and he builds and he builds, and the connection gets higher and higher until he's speaking face to face with the king. And the king is giving him deeper intellectual understandings and different languages. And the king is lifting him to high places and building him palaces and everything. This is where he goes, right? Because of that constant building, the constant connection, and right? And the constant desire and willingness to receive from someone who's higher than him. That's the tam. And the Chochom is just arrogant all the time, not interested in anyone being above him, only trying to grab here, never happy where he is, always jumping to this place, jumping to that place, right? And never willing to receive anything from someone who he perceives to be above him, right? And so he goes downhill. That's it. It's over. This is what happens to him.